This is a question that I've been meaning to make a video about for a long time because it's a question that comes up a lot with me. If you know me, you'll know that I am obsessed with Susan Garrett. I love all of her stuff, and especially when we first brought Vigo home, we were very much into her training programs. I bought Homeschool the Dog, I joined Recallers, and I often get asked, like, are they good programs? Would you do it again? What do you recommend? What I love about Susan Garrett's approach is that she's very anchored in play, so all of her training is game-based. So everything that you're learning with your dog is centered and anchored around a game, which makes it really fun for you and really fun for your dog. As a side note, this isn't necessarily just for puppies. You can also do this work with older dogs. She works with all age groups, but for us, we were in puppy phase. So I really wanted to find something that had back to front lessons to help me raise a brilliant family dog. That was like my number one priority. Homeschool the Dog was really, really good, but I did find that it had gaps, which of course makes sense. It's much lower price point. It's much less deep, much less in depth. Whatever, you know what I mean? It's not as in-depth as Recallers, and that was my big challenge with Homeschool the Dog. Specifically, Vigo was getting to the age where we were trying to take him outside for walks, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have a dog that pulled. That was like my nightmare scenario was having a dog that would like drag me down the street, because I've had dogs like that, I've known dogs like that, and I used to look after my husband's dog, who was a golden retriever. Lovely dog, but he had terrible leash manners, and I used to get anxiety taking him outside because he would like all but drag me down the street because he was so strong. So I really wanted to protect against that, and Homeschool the Dog did not cover that. For this reason, we ended up joining Recallers maybe like 2 or 3 months into getting Homeschool the Dog. Homeschool the Dog is pretty short, so you can get through it quite fast. But if I had my time again, I would have jumped straight to Recallers, because Homeschool the Dog is basically a handful of lessons from Recallers just lifted and put into Homeschool the Dog from memory. Don't quote me on that, but a lot of things overlap, but Recallers goes much further and much more in depth, and it has everything laid out in a step-by-step process. So it did cover things like impulse control, it did cover things like leash manners, and the way that Recallers is set up is that there's basically 40 game days, and then you have like bonus lessons too around like reducing barking and things like that. We haven't dove into those as yet, but the lessons in Recallers were really comprehensive, really step-by-step, really layered on top of each other. To be honest, I haven't even worked my way through Recallers yet, and we're probably like 8 or 9 months into our 1-year subscription, just because I haven't had time with the move and the pregnancy and all that jazz. But if I had my time again, I'd highly recommend checking out Recallers. It is more expensive, but you do get a year's worth of access. You do get access to a Facebook group where you can ask any questions. And when I look at the price of in-person training classes in Miami, for example, one class is $40. So you get a pack of 5 for $200. When you look at how many classes you'd get for $500, roughly you get 12 or 13 classes, right? And when you compare that with getting access to Recallers for a year and having a clear step-by-step system, Recallers definitely, I think, makes sense if you can afford it. There's definitely a place, I think, for in-person training classes. I think for us, it helps reinforce with Vigo that when he sees other dogs, it's not playtime. And this has worked out really nicely for us because Vigo is relatively unfazed when he sees other dogs around, especially when they're at more of a distance. Whereas other dogs I know see a dog and will just beeline for him, even if he's like 100 meters away. Overall, as I said, I'd recommend Recallers and maybe doing a handful of in-person classes if you can afford them and if they're in your area. Long story short, highly, highly, highly recommend Susan Garrett's programs. She also has, I think, like a free 5-day taster that you can sign up for. At a bare minimum, I'd suggest doing that just to see if you like her style and like the vibe. I can't recommend her programs highly enough. I think they're brilliant. And I think, have definitely seen, even though we haven't finished the programs and haven't maybe been as dedicated, especially recently, as we used to be, we definitely, I think, have seen the fruits of the labor that we've put into the program. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions about the program. Happy to answer. Again, this is not sponsored. This is just my experience having paid for the program myself and being someone who wants to raise a brilliant family dog. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.